Hey everybody, it's Jamonster back again with Opus Gaming. I am here with my teammate Eric's Verona Zoro deck. He went undefeated in tonight's local tournament, so I really wanted to bring this to you guys. I know that everybody's kind of looking for different builds, and his build is very solid. So essentially, we're just going to get into the deck profile. So if you want to start, Eric, go ahead.
All right, thanks a lot for having me on, Jermaine.
Yeah, man.
So starting us off the base, obviously we're playing leader Zoro. The Don 1 effect is just so good. You can go wide, you can just attack over everything.
Absolutely.
Keeps your Namis up high value throughout the time and lets your board always be a threat and make sure they have to clear anything that they leave that gets tapped or they're just going to get hurt next turn again.
Absolutely. The additional 1K came up in our last turn when I was trying to counter out of something and we miscalculated. I mean, it's just the 1K is huge for what you pull from your opponent's hand.
And just, hits everything in the deck, so always good no matter the situation.
Yep.
So
super strong.
Getting into the main 1-drops, we have it started off with 4 of the Searcher Namis from set 1.
Cool.
Searcher Nami, phenomenal. Gets everything in the deck besides Nami. Not getting Nami is a huge problem and can be a big factor because, as you know, our other big 1-drop is our other Nami from the starter decks.
Oh, okay, so you are playing both of them.
Yes,
Nice.
so I am playing 4 of each.
Yep.
Not having a Nami turn 1 really hurts you. Regardless of which Nami you hit, it has huge tempo. Being able to Nami off this turn to playing it turn 1 and then maybe Sanji rush the next turn still from playing it if you're going first, or just any type of combo with that play, just having that extra Don keeps it up. And then these Namis being at 2K is a huge factor. Once you add in the Zoro and at 3K, that means 2 Don means you're swinging in, or even just clearing off small blockers or anything on the board. So always key to keep an eye on this once it's played out, and it's a huge factor once it's on the board, and a lot of people just ignore it, and then they just get burned on it later because they realize they have three attackers that can just finish you off in the last turn.
For sure. Is that something you mulligan for when you're starting the game off?
Yeah, I really want one of the 2 Namis, or as we'll get to, one of the 2 years to search. You're basically trying to search to hit one of your rushers, or just store up wherever your hand is supposed to be for the next few turns. Or just advance your board state where it will, help yourself for the next few turns.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, just build a board. So I can build a hand.
The last 1-drop character we have is 4 Choppers.
Nice.
Chopper, it's the only blocker we play in the deck, but you need something in there to do it. It gets searched by the Namis and the other searches.
Makes sense.
And just in there to stop you from dying. We need to stop you from dying.
Yeah. No, it definitely came up from the last turn of our match as well. And how do you feel about it not having counter power? Does that matter really?
I mean, I feel like you really, since you're only playing the 4, you really never want to counter with it in the first place. So it hasn't been a huge factor. There's definitely been a few turns where I wish it was 1K. But in general, 1K isn't a big factor in this deck. A lot of the times you kind of want to take a lot of the damage even in the later game because you need the extra card advantage to close out. So it's kind of a weird situation where sometimes you have an easily blockable hit when you're at like 2 life and you want to go down to 1 just because you need the extra card in hand to have the other highest chance of finishing it off.
Okay.
So, just the 1, thinks it's fine. If there's a better blocker, we'd probably play it, but not having the 1K won't really change anything. All right, so getting away from the 1-drops here.
Yeah, getting into the 2.
We're going to get into really looking to deal the damage here. So first big damage dealer, starter deck Sanji.
Cool. How do you feel about 4 of it right away?
I do think 4 is really good, specifically when you are playing the starter deck Nami to get the extra play. Going first, when you play Nami turn 1 and then turn 2 Sanji, attach the 1 onto that and just swing with the 6K. You don't always get to do the Zoro when you do that play boost, but you don't always need the Zoro boost. It's still a 5K on its own, can still swing in, and just overall has the value, and just a late game top deck that can extra rush when you don't hit the Zoro or the Luffy is a huge factor.
For sure.
Really, if you're not playing the Shanks, you need to have all 4 in my opinion, because you're just not going to be able to close out the game as consistently as you want to.
Okay.
Speaking of closing out the game, obviously we also play the 4 Zoros.
The card of the deck.
The card of the deck. The
sure.
reason I built it and played it is because someone popped up and I traded for him and I got him, but card's phenomenal. Obviously has huge value in law decks as well, but you really just need to get in there and rush. It's 5K on its own, 6K when you have Zoro included with it, so it gets in clean above most hits. Great trade. Your opponent always has to think around it when it's not in your hand, so you can just threaten it a lot of the time and make your opponent do suboptimal plays to not want to die. Overall, just does lots of damage. And
yeah, for sure.
Gets the job done as quickly as it needs. It makes sense for it to be so expensive with how the game is right now.
Yep.
And then last 3-drop here, last kind of dealing damage, we have 4 Nikos. So this is the only reason I managed to win against Jermaine today in the last round.
That was cleaning up my board very cleanly.
Nico definitely has a bad matchup in some decks, against some decks like purple, but if you're playing either in the red mirror of either against Law or Luffy, or just any green, basically any red or green at all, Nico is just your powerhouse. The ability to remove blockers on the board, or your opponent's Namis if they're playing red Straw Hats. you can just kind of get rid of everything that kind of sticks around and is really persistent, can be an issue later in the game, and force the fights in the way you want. And one last thing to show with the Nico that really gives the Nico a lot of power is the 4 copies of Brook I play.
Okay, awesome. That is a good combo.
So Brook, kind of clunky can be sometimes. You know, it is a 4-drop 5K, which is really nice, and you're going to 6K, usually 7 off of the Zoro once you have that boost in. The real way Zoro gets its value in is with Nico Robin being able to reduce and then get the deletions on afterwards, or just for the Gum Gum pistol, and you need to get rid of the bigger effects as well. Get them down, get the 8K down to 6K, blow it up afterwards. So definitely value. Just a big body on the board is a counter, which is nice. I definitely use this card to counter much more than a lot of the cards in the deck because it can, you know, be a lot more volatile in a lot of the matchups. You know, some decks it's just not that great into, and it's just a 5K body. But for the most part, it gets the job done and does what you need to do in red.
Perfect. I really like the thing I like about your like smaller card lineup is that all of them are at 4. So you're just seeing like similar cards, and it seems very consistent. That's what I've noticed.
Yeah.
I know a lot of builds will play like 4 of the Nico, but I'm not sure where people are at with Sanji. I didn't think Zoro played that many Sanji, so it's really cool to see 4 of that. And the same thing with Brook. Maybe I'm just uneducated in the Zoro builds.
I definitely could see people not wanting to play the Sanjis just because it can be a little bit rough early on when you can't get the rush going. But in general, I've found that the 4K, because the big thing from Sanji that people don't realize is it's a free 5K swing when Zoro has 1 power on.
For sure.
So you can just have Sanji sitting out there, hard play the turn before, and it's just a free swing on its own once you get your Wonder Knee Zoro. And even that alone just to threaten it or trade into your opponent's Zoros when they go in. 5K is such a big number in this game. Getting able to hit that automatic 5K on a 2-drop the turn after or the rush if you need it, you know, definitely could be a bricky, but when you want to go out and you need to finish the game, in my opinion, it's really what helps close it out.
That makes a lot of sense, for sure. Nice, nice.
All right, and so getting into some of the, I guess there's one more big 4 thing we'll obviously have to cover, and that is the Luffys.
Yeah,
so I do play all 4. I think you need to play all 4. Getting around blockers is huge.
I agree.
Has won me multiple games this tonight. You know, just getting around the blocker or just being an extra rusher along with its big body. Yeah, you know, there's not a lot of stuff that can get around blocker in this game. You know, you can play the option if you want, but the option's really kind of so iffy sometimes, can be a dead card a lot of the time.
For sure.
Luffy really gets the job done most of the time. You don't really need to worry about it. You know, highly searchable with the Namis and the 2 years, so.
No, that makes a lot of sense. And you mentioned earlier that you're not playing Shanks, so having a card that is like embodies a boss monster, I think Luffy is actually a fantastic boss monster for a really good cost. So I can see where it can be very
5
effective.
can be a bit expensive, but I definitely think in this deck where you're usually play pretty cheap, you can get a lot of value out with just the Luffy and other stuff.
He's worth all 5.
You can still Luffy and effect and then still play a Rush Zoro as well, so definitely good value.
Sweet.
Next we're going to go, these are mainly as counters. This is really where your flexibility in the deck can come from. So these cards are really played for counters. I'm playing 4 Brook and 4 Sanji. They're just 2K counters. The Brook can sometimes come up because I can get the body on board and play the two down underneath. A lot more impactful when I'm playing stuff when I'm trying to get my value out of stuff like Nico, but still the rest of the board. But really today was just a 2K counter. Sanji's the same, also just a 2K counter. The one thing in the deck that I would see improving is taking out some combination of these 2 cards to fit in 4 of the promo 2K counter Luffy. It's kind of expensive right now for what it actually offers. It does have some good effects, but I wouldn't recommend it if you're just playing this deck for fun. But if you have them and you want them, I would definitely recommend some type of combination of taking these 2 cards out to fit in 4 of those. It's another 2K counter, has a slightly more upside effect, a bit more aggro, but even then, with these being at 3K, Zoro effect goes to 4K, 1 more done, they go to 5K. They're still big threats when you need them to, and Sanji has a somewhat playable effect as well.
Sure.
That can technically
For
pop
sure.
up,
I've definitely seen people use Sanji. I think he goes up to 7K because it's plus 2K and then 2 rest of
Exactly, yeah. But
so you can be pretty big, 8K with the leader effect.
In general,
so I can see that being usable.
In general, though, they're just the blockers. Definitely the counters. Definitely a spot I can see kind of, swapping up if you wanted some more aggro in the deck or just some different tech. And then getting down to the last of it, we have the events. So we definitely play 4 Straw Hat for 2 years. 2 years is great. It hits Nami, which is the best part. Nami doesn't hit Nami, but 2 years can hit Nami, and it can hit both of them.
Instead of putting her to the bottom of the deck?
Instead of putting them to the bottom of the deck, and man, you really want to hit your Namis if you can, because then you can just get another card. And like I said, those 2K Namis, when you play them on the board, they're threats later in the game. You know, only takes 2 down along with the 1 on Zoro. Gum Gum Jet Pistol, run all 4. Card's phenomenal. Combo it with Brook. It's how one of the best ways to get rid of Kid. Didn't manage to get it. You know, gets rid of Law on its own. Gets rid of Queen. It's just great value, and you know you can get some good combination out of it. And then finally, the only 2 of in the deck, we run 2 Radical Beams. I like running it. It's good.
Yeah.
It can win you the game. It didn't come up at all for me today. I had it once.
It's nice when you don't need it.
But yeah, it was very phenomenal when you don't need it. Very lucky you don't need it. I could definitely see teching up to a third one.
Yep.
I definitely know a lot of people that run 3 or 4 because it's just, the brick. Maybe a 2K counter out for that as well. Definitely could see that. But I stuck with the 2 just because I really wanted to hit my creatures and be more aggro and be on the offensive as much as possible. So I didn't want to have too many in hand.
For sure, for sure. That makes a lot of sense. The one thing I like kind of going all the way through your deck was the 4-ofs. I know I mentioned it earlier, but yeah, just seeing everything being just 4 of 4 of 4 of it seems really consistent. You saw a combination of most of these cards in our match today, and I saw you saw a combination of most of them in your games today as well. Really quick, before we touch on a couple of the small things really quick, if you guys made it this far into the deck profile, if you could like, subscribe if you're not already subscribed, and then drop a comment, drop any questions or anything you have like that in the comments. But how do you feel about Red Zoro? Are you going to keep playing this deck?
I'll definitely play it some. I might make some slight tweaks as I go. I might try out the extra Radical Bean or try swapping out some of the counters. But overall, the deck's great. I still think this is the best deck in the format by far. It just has at least 55% matchup against any deck in the format. Even its 50-50s are slightly favored to it a lot of the times.
For sure.
And it's really on your opponent having their outs, which is, there's not that many outs to this deck in the format. There's Kid, but you have your outs too that you can get around. And, it's really about your opponent playing around you compared to you having to play around your opponent when you play this deck. So, especially if you're getting into the game for the first time, you want something a bit more straightforward. This is my first time playing the deck tonight, so it's a pretty smooth and easy deck to play.
Yep.
You just turn right and swing with big numbers, but
make it simple, right?
Yeah, it's a great introduction. The Zoros are expensive, but everything else in the deck is cheap.
Yep.
So great one to get started out with, and it's a fun time.
Yeah.
When everyone try it out.
No, that makes a lot of sense. No, we're going to wrap up the deck profile there. Thank you so much, Eric, for doing the deck profile, and congratulations on your first place tonight.
Absolutely.
I know it's I don't know how many of those winter promos you have, but you have a few. So
working on the play set.
Yes, you are.
All right,
no, congratulations. Yeah, man, of course. All right, this is going to be Jamonster with Opus Gaming. We're going to be out. Take care, guys.
Bye.